Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our monthly Health Innovation Community Partnership meeting. We're excited you're able to join us on this beautiful July Friday morning. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a terrific week and a wonderful month. We'll go ahead and get started, and thank you, everyone who was able to join us despite the move in our regular rhythm and schedule. We are meeting today, as you know, on the second Friday of the month because of the holiday week last week. Let's go ahead and get started. As you know, we host our meetings via Zoom. We have a few tech tips for those that are joining us via Zoom. Just wanted you to all to know that this meeting is being recorded, and the recording will ultimately be posted on our HICPLA.org website. You can check it out there in the future, as well as all of the meeting materials and past meeting materials and recordings. We do ask everyone to please mute yourself unless you are speaking. But we definitely want this to be a very interactive session. So we encourage everyone to raise their hand if they have a question and would like to contribute something orally. Also, you're welcome to put any comments and questions into the chat, and we'll read them out to our presenters at the appropriate time. Finally, before we move forward, please make sure that everyone on this call selects the language of their choice via the Zoom toolbar, the interpretation globe icon. That way you can fully participate and hear information in English or Spanish, depending on your language of preference. Today, we're looking forward to a presentation again from our LA General Medical Center. We're going to have a community health update focusing in on the migrant crisis in our community. We'll hear a little bit more about some of our campus projects in a report back session. And then we're also going to get a more thorough report back on the regional planning process that we've heard information about through many of our meetings in the past. We're getting another update on where things stand today. We'll also have a conversation about the juvenile justice system in LA, and we'll wrap it up with some partner announcements. So with that, I'll read our guiding principles document, and then we'll go ahead and start our meeting. All participants agree to basic principles prioritizing equity, community resilience, and health in all programs and projects. All participants agree to approach issues with an open mind, be willing to engage in dialogue, and commit to thinking boldly about solutions. Participants will state views and ask genuine questions. Participants will seek to avoid monologues and arguments, move to conversations where participants are curious and seek to understand various points of view. Participants will explain reasoning and intent, share how we reach our conclusions so that others can understand our divergent reasoning. Participants will attack the problem and not the person, organization, or institution. Participants will define key terms so that we can attain a shared understanding. Participants will share all relevant information. Participants will always arrive prepared for the meeting. During meetings, only one person speaks at a time. We will not engage in sidebar conversations. Participants will work to develop a comprehensive, common set of information with which to solve problems and make decisions. Participants will jointly design next steps. And with that, I'm very excited to welcome again Jorge Orozco, the CEO of the LA General Medical Center, to provide an update on campus happenings. Welcome, Jorge.
So Jorge couldn't make it to this morning.
Welcome, Edgar. So he's filling in for Jorge.
And we're using the same link, that's why.
Oops, Jorge, pardon me, Edgar, we're having a little hard time hearing you.
So yeah, I'm not Jorge Orozco, although the name appears at, oh, now it's Edgar Solis. Okay, awesome. Although we do look alike, just kidding. But glad to be with you today. He regrets missing and meeting with all of you, but he says hello and he sends his regards. I will be providing a few updates and activities that we have on campus, starting with we have a new e-store. As you all know, we recently went through a rebranding of our hospital and changed the name to Los Angeles General Medical Center. And with that, we absolutely want to provide swag so we can show how proud we are of the new name and new hospital. And I think it's in the next slide. If you could advance the slide, please. Right. Okay, I think I'm missing a slide.
Sorry about that, Edgar. I think we're missing that particular slide. My apologies. I'll see if I can find it.
Well, we will send out the link if you would like to buy merch. Proceeds of that merch purchase would go to our foundation to support the events like we're displaying now. LA General was happy to support um, our staff attending the LA Pride event that happened last June in partnership with DHS. A lot of our staff, we provided a van and transportation to the event in LA, and it was an awesome celebration, and happy to support the Pride event that happened out in on June 11th of last month. And speaking about the merch, we handed out all these T-shirts to promote our facility, and a lot of the folks were wearing our Los Angeles General T-shirts.
Mhm.
And last month as well, as you all know, is June 19th is a celebration that we held here on campus, and it was an awesome event. Um, I was there at the event, and one of our social workers gave a very powerful speech on what Juneteenth meant to him. And it was awesome to hear. All the folks we had tons of booths to provide information and services that are available to them. And also we introduced our recent addition to our executive team, Miss Erica Braxton. She is the Chief Engagement and Community Engagement, Chief Equity and Engagement, Community Engagement Officer. And you see her picture at the top right. Um, but it was an awesome celebration, and we invite everyone to come and join us on these celebrations. But we had live music, we had contests, post your picture with our backdrop, and you get a free T-shirt. So it was an awesome event. And also our ED staff, our ED medical staff, also were at a Juneteenth celebration in Long Beach. They had a booth out there explaining and demonstrating all the great services that we provide and the great work that we do here at Los Angeles Medical Center. So we want to thank them for taking the time on their own personal time to show the community the great work that we do at the Juneteenth celebration in Long Beach. This was a pretty cool event. This event we held is the Employee Recognition and Service Awards for this year of 2023. And this is an event where we recognize the commitment and dedication that our staff have to this medical center and to the county. We celebrated folks from 25 years plus, and we had a person that has been dedicated to providing services to the LA County for 50 years. And so it was an amazing event to celebrate those folks and just show how we appreciate their dedication. And big shout out to our PIO team and our patient relations and employee engagement team. That this was one of the events that we changed the format. It was outdoors. We brought the in and out truck over, and that was a huge hit. But they were all it was just an awesome event. It was very exciting to celebrate the dedication that all these folks have given to the county. So we continue to build on this and make it grander just to show them how appreciative we are of the service. We recently had an inaugural graduation of a program. It's the California Registered Nurse Ambulatory Specialty Apprenticeship Program, where newly graduated RNs are placed in an apprenticeship program in the outpatient areas to really get them trained and up to speed on how we deliver ambulatory care. And this is for the outpatient clinics. Out of the cohort, we graduated 100% of those folks that started from the beginning to the end. So we're really excited about that. That's something that I think is a satisfier for our registered nurse workforce. They see that we value their contributions, and how we show that and demonstrate that is providing this dedicated training program, so they can integrate into the workforce seamlessly and hit the ground running once they're ready to go. So we're going to continue to do this. We have another cohort that will start. And we want to expand this not only to the outpatient side, but also the inpatient side. And to all of our new hire nurses.
That's
We
so exciting.
Yeah, it's been demonstrated that by providing these apprenticeship programs and training periods, we have more retention and
Hmm.
better morale from our staff. Because I'm a nurse too, and I remember way back when I started as a new nurse, when I first hit the floor, they didn't have these programs, and although they'd had some type of training, it was nerve-wracking, but I empathize with the nurses. I think this is great for them, and we're going to continue to expand this for all RNs.
Wonderful. How many people participated in this inaugural class?
I believe it was 60 something. I don't have the exact number.
Wow, that's a really big group.
It was in the 60s. Yeah, yeah, big group.
Very impressive. And do you plan to do this on maybe an annual basis then, or is it just kind of going to be more of a rolling program?
Yes, I think this was the inaugural, just to uh, uh, see how it would turn out, and I think it was a huge hit. I think it's has improved morale with our new grad nurses, and we see the retention within the first 3 months. So yes, this is something that will continue to happen on an annual basis.
Wonderful. Thank you for that update.
Yeah. And just a shout out and really advertising our need for blood.
Mhm.
During the pandemic, there were a couple months where we were really struggling, and the blood bank levels were hitting a critical low. And so we had this campaign to increase our blood stores. Blood is not only used for our trauma patients, it's also used during very critical surgeries, during folks that have anemic folks that have deficiencies, that to supplement them. So blood is life, and we encourage you all, if you can, to please scan that link or click there to make an appointment to donate some blood. Thursday, June 29th. Um, that already happened, but we have these every month. We need to update that date, but these happen every month. But
Mm.
that if you scan that code, it'll give you the latest dates and the times of when we're having those blood drive events, and they're happening on campus. We host them here.
Mhm. And that happens pretty much on the fourth Thursday of the month. Is that right?
That's
Pretty
correct.
consistently.
That's
And
correct.
then Diego, I don't know if you want to chime in, but Diego, I know Alma Family Services is also running a blood drive in some like the next week or so, just to give an alternative to people if the Thursday isn't as convenient.
Thank you very much, Heather. We are actually holding a blood drive today at 11 o'clock uh, at Wabash. So while we're here at the meeting, we are partnering with the Red Cross to host a blood drive from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and that's at the Alma Wabash Youth Center, located at 3218 Wabash Avenue. And I can share the flyer so it can be shared with our team here. And we'd love for you to help us disseminate this event as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you. As you mentioned, it's a critical resource to healthcare, and having clean, safe, available blood just really is core and fundamental to being able to provide excellent care in emergency situations. So, for those that are able, we highly encourage you to find a site near you that you can contribute in this way to just all of our health and well-being. All right. So, any questions for Edgar
Before we
about
go to
how?
before we go
Sorry.
to questions, I do want to share some very uh, good news about the COVID pandemic. This week was the first time since the start of the pandemic back in March of 2020, where we have not had a patient with COVID or tested positive with COVID in the hospital. So it was a huge milestone for us. It's something that we celebrate with our staff and our community. The tremendous work that they've done throughout the pandemic. It's just a huge milestone that we did not have a COVID positive patient in the hospital. And that was the first time that happened since the start of the pandemic.
What an incredible milestone. Whew.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
we know COVID isn't over, but what an incredible feat in a hospital of this size and the complex nature of the people that are served by this hospital. That's really impressive, Edgar. What a
Yeah,
celebration for us
it's a
all.
good point, Heather. You know, COVID is still around. It's still infecting people. However, it's not the same disease and the effects on the person that we saw 2 years ago. It's a different experience now. However, we still continue to make sure encourage folks to stay vigilant. You know, if you're sick, you know, stay away from other folks. Um, but it's now endemic as opposed to a pandemic. It's still around, however, it's a huge milestone that we celebrate.
Indeed. So do we have any questions for Edgar? All right, thanks. Looks like we are good, Edgar. Thank you so much for joining us as always, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Next up, I'm so excited to invite Ari Gutierrez Arambula from the HICP Co-Design Committee to introduce our next speaker. This was a segment that Ari proposed as part of our co-design session to really look into the needs of the migrants that are arriving unexpectedly on our doorstep through the process of coming to us from Texas. And I know Ari, you championed this idea, and I'd love to have you introduce the segment and our next speaker.
Yes, thank you so much for including this item on the agenda for today. Um, uh, Latino Equality Alliance is a LGBT advocacy organization, and many times we get messages from people who are seeking asylum and are still in other countries. So, you know, there's not much that we can do, you know, to help them make their decision and do their trek. But there are a lot of people who do pursue that. We hear about it in the news. We hear about it in terms of you know, the challenges that the migrants themselves face. You know, going through jungles, lack of food, things like that. And so it is quite a treacherous adventure. And so then when they get to the border, now they have some new guidelines in terms of if they're seeking asylum, how they can enter the country, and you know, technically by appointment, rather than trying to cross treacherously across the river or other method that is health risk, life risk. But Chirla is based in Los Angeles and has been working with the immigrant community for decades, and is involved not only on the local regional level but on the national level regarding policy for immigration policy in general. So I know that recently I spoke with Angelica Salas, who is the executive director there. She was on the mayor's committee, you know, for the first 100 days with me, and we spoke about the fact that in California, the immigrant community does have access to health services, but if they know about it and if they access it. So because in the news that we've had, you know, the busloads of people, you know, kind of making news about it, where some asylum seekers are sent to California, either courtesy of the Florida governor or the Texas governor. However they get here, the fact is that they are getting here, and they may have some urgent health needs, and with whomever they are staying, we don't know how much they know about type of health services they can get. So we've invited Chirla, the Coalition for Human Rights of Human Immigrant Rights, and the policy director, to tell us about how they're involved in the asylum, receiving the asylum seekers that we've heard about on the bus. You hear Jorge Mario being quoted in the newspaper about those incidents, but the policy director can share more with us about what is happening on the ground regarding that. and also what's happening on the policy level. So I'm welcome Gloria to speak to us. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Adi. I hope you all are able to hear me well. The connection has been spotty for me, so if you could just let me know if you're not able to hear me. But thank you so much for inviting us. My name is Gloria Cruz. I am the Policy and Advocacy Director here at CHIRLA. And part of the work that we've been doing is, as Adi mentioned, there's been a lot of changes in relation to the immigration policy related to the folks that are trying to seek asylum. And so as CHIRLA, we have a team at the federal and state and local level working on policies. And what we have seen in relation to this population is that one, they've gone through a very long journey, and some of them, throughout the journey have also did not taken care of their health. And so once they are able to be paroled into the U.S. after they reach the border and have an appointment process and are paroled into the U.S., we see them, arriving not just to us, but other localities and other communities where they're meeting up with their families or their sponsors with illnesses that might have been attended if they would have continued to take medication. Definitely one of the biggest increases that we've seen is folks who had diabetes and did not treat it throughout the journey. How some folks, their health definitely had declined. And so I'm gonna go through some slides and sharing with you just our efforts here in LA County. I just would like to start with that we have been partnering with the county and city immigrant affairs offices, along with the emergency management departments, to discuss just how we are welcoming individuals here into our region in a humane way. I'm sure you all seen how politicized this topic has been in relation to the efforts in the state of Texas to be, utilizing the situation of these individuals to create political messaging in other communities and try to disrupt systems. And so here in LA, we started meeting up with those departments early on in the year, as we were hearing about the uplifting of Title 42, which was, it's a policy that was basically keeping folks away from accessing the legal asylum process that they would normally access at the border. And it was just extended the period to many years, and all based on the health emergency orders. And so, we were hoping to be preparing for the worst in May 11th once the policy would end. And, now we, in the month of July, we never saw a huge uptake of individuals actually, crossing in large groups and being able to access the asylum process. And we know that a lot of folks are staying in Mexico and going through the process of using the application that the federal government has created so that they get an appointment. And that process has actually been able to support the
ha podido respaldar la gran cantidad de personas
as folks are going into CBP at the border, on the southern border, and then being processed and then being able to get to their destinations. And so I'm gonna start talking a little bit about the welcoming efforts here in LA, and I will go into sharing a little bit about our coalition here in LA that is. So July leads the LA Welcomes Collective. If you've been following the media, you've been hearing some of the efforts we've been doing.
Gloria, this is Heather. I've been asked if you could slow down a little bit for our interpreter who's doing simultaneous interpretation into Spanish. If you could slow the pace of your talk down just a little bit, that would be so helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm a policy person, so I'm so used to talking fast. So thank you.
Yes, you are. You are very you know your stuff so tight. You are just on it. But yes, give a little time and space for everyone to stay with us. Thank you.
I appreciate the nudge, and and I love that you are providing language justice in your meetings, because that's so important and at the core of our principles as well. So So going back to the network of the organizations who are part of the LA Welcomes Collective. So it's the immigration legal services providers, faith-based organizations, and we're all just focusing on the rapid response and the assistance that is needed for any new arrivals that are coming to LA. Not just folks who have been, put on some of these buses from Texas to LA, but just in general, we know that there'll be an increase of folks, arriving to LA to welcome to call LA home that might not be as aware of, what is out here in relation to services and not in legal services, but also other type of programming that the city and county might have available to them. So the members of the collective is the us, Churla Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. We have Central American Resource Center, Los Angeles, Carece. We have Immigrant Defenders Law Center, IMDEF, the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, Clergy and Lady United for Economic Justice, which is a network of faith leaders, and then the Esperanza Immigrant Rights Project. So I want to share with you the last three bus arrivals that we have received. As you might have seen, there's folks that are put on buses in Texas and then sent over to various cities across the country. We hadn't been targeted so far when this initiative started in the state of Texas, but we received our first bus June 14. This bus arrived directly from El Paso to here to LA. This bus had 43 individuals. The countries of origin identified in those individuals was Guatemala, Honduras, Haiti, Venezuela, China, Colombia, and Chile. And all those individuals had final destination in California and mainly in the LA County proper. The second bus arrived to us on July 1st, and this time this bus arrived to Union Station from Brownsville, Texas. This bus had 41 individuals, which included 9 families and 9 single adults. And the countries represented there was Venezuela, Mexico, El Salvador, Colombia, Cuba, Guatemala, Belize, and Nicaragua. The majority of folks had LA or California as their destination, followed by Nevada and Washington. And the third bus just arrived yesterday. Coming fresh from a long 18, 24-hour journey of myself and our team responded to a bus that arrived from another bus from Brownsville, Texas. This bus had 30 asylum seekers in it. It had 21 adults, 9 children. Of the children, 5 were between the ages of 10 or 15, 7 or 9, 1 year old, and there was a baby as well. Countries of origin represented by this bus was Venezuela, Mexico, Haiti, and China. Most had final destination LA County, Northern California, and we did identify some folks that had onward destination to Utah, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Illinois, Colorado, Nevada, Indiana, Georgia, and North Carolina. After the arrivals from these buses come into our care, and they are transported to a welcome center we have set up along the partner organizations, the county health and human services departments, some city departments, the CIFD department in the city, and at this site, which we have identified St. Anthony's Church, who has been the facility that we've been using. And at this location, we provide folks a change of clothes and hygiene kits, a full meal and snacks, medical screening by the LA County Health Department. This screening includes a COVID test. When we first encounter the migrant population, we ask them if they're feeling, if they have a fever, if they're how they're feeling, and and do that initial screening at the first encounter in the bus. And then once they get to the welcome center, there's public health individuals there providing options to vaccination, and then more in-depth screening. Like I mentioned, some of these folks might not have taken their medication for the extent of their journey, and as you can see, their countries of origin are pretty far from LA, and so they try to do an assessment, a full medical assessment of that individual. Then we provide a legal orientation, so our partners and do a legal orientation, because many of times these folks have been in the process for so long, even years, that they don't really understand the next steps in relation to their legal process. Many of them need to have a hearing with a judge and follow up with their case, and so we have attorneys on site that help them navigate that. And so far, in relation to the last two buses, we didn't have to do too much travel arrangements, because folks did have family that came on site and picked them up, and were reunited there. But in this most recent bus, we have supported individuals to be able to get to the airport so that they can and get over to their final destination, being reunited with their sponsor or their family. And so far, we've also seen instances where individuals had LA as a destination, but not necessarily a receiving community. And so we have supported with a hotel room or overnight shelter to be able to provide extended case management once they are arrested, and we can bring them into our Chilla office and provide some legal assistance and full case management in case they need placement in a local shelter, or we can find a receiving community that would support in them, in the full integration into our communities. That's been one process in relation to the Venezuelan folks, who we have a big Venezuelan community here, and we've been able to connect some of these folks, and they've been able to access housing and access to jobs too once they're here. I wanted to elevate something here, and I did invite my colleague Esmeralda Flores, who is part of my team, and it's in San Diego, because part of the what we've seen in general, not just in this instances with the buses, but as we continue to encounter new migrant arrivals that are just coming on their own, and they're arriving here to Los Angeles after being processed and wanting to come to LA as home. They're in LA and California in general. We have encountered an increase in folks coming with injuries, and this was at a peak right before the May 11th uplifting of Title 42 happened. So I wanted for her to share with you some of the studies that are out there and some of the work that she's doing in San Diego and with other partners. So Esmeralda, if you want to jump in and share about these two slides.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Esmeralda Flores. I'm the Southern Region Policy Manager for CHIRLAS. And as Gloria mentioned, I am based in San Diego. So here, unlike other regions or jurisdictions, we do have a lot of Border Patrol issues when it comes to either injuries, as you can see in the slide, regarding the border wall, or also while they're in detention under Border Patrol custody. So recently, the University of California released a report, and also the Mexican government did too. And I just added kind of like some highlights here in the slide for you to see. According to the one from the University of California, they've seen an increase in incidents related to the border wall. And also, this is also tied to really restricted policies. As my colleague Gloria was mentioning, we had Title 42, we had MPP for the past few years here at the border. The legal access to asylum and other forms of relief has been guided by recent administrations, and also made permanent by the current administration. So when we black out people's options and legal means to access are either international protection or some sort of like immigration relief, people will turn to more dangerous paths, unfortunately, because that's the desperation that that they have. So we did see a lot of increase in these injuries, as you can see in the slide, due to people recurring to jump the border wall or try to cross between ports of entry. And right now, also because of the summer, we also get, unfortunately, a lot of people who are dehydrated in the desert, or people who even lose their lives trying to cross during the summer months through the desert. I think another important point regarding to the report released by the Mexican government was that just last year, 42 Mexican nationals lost their lives while trying to cross just the Tijuana and San Diego border, whether that was through the sea or through the border wall because of injuries that weren't attended. We've also seen an increase that some of our partners are closely monitoring, is the lack of Border Patrol assistance. So previously, Border Patrol would encounter, as their name said, they would be patrolling the border, and if they encounter someone who was injured, they would take them to the nearest hospital to receive medical attention. Now what they do is, instead of themselves taking them, they're calling 911 so they can go and pick them up. And that way, Border Patrol is not responsible for the person while they're in medical custody, so the bill doesn't go to Border Patrol. And that's kind of like a theory that a lot of advocates here at the border region have been monitoring, the lack of Border Patrol assistance to taking people to the hospital, and instead calling 911. That's a trend that we've seen. The other thing that I didn't add in the slide has been when it comes to pregnant people who are in custody with Border Patrol. A couple of years ago, we had a case when I was working for another nonprofit here in San Diego. We had a case of a person who gave birth in Border Patrol custody, holding on to a trash can because they ignore her claims of needing medical assistance. And she delivered like the baby, as I mentioned, holding onto a trash can, and her partner was there with her and assisted her, and was the person that basically catch the baby, the newborn, without like any hygiene, any gloves, any medical attention. And it was until she gave birth that she received like medical attention, and that's an ongoing case here in the region. So those are kind of like also the extreme cases that sometimes we deal with in the region.
Thank you, Esme. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring in the perspective of what folks are also encountering while detained and as they're crossing, because what we've seen with the new arrival population is that there's been some separation of families where, and this is the instance of some of the folks in the buses that have come here, that it could be the mom and the child, and the husband had been either held longer or had been sent to another location instead of coming with the family to LA. And so that's one of the pieces that, you know, where it's evolving for us, and not just to the bus population, but also folks who are just newly arriving. And another big a point that has increased is that folks that are coming into Chirla to seek assistance once they arrive to LA, that they have existing or injuries that they've acquired because they were just desperate and jumped over the wall and received injuries, broken knees, all different kind of injuries, because they were trying to seek asylum and going through the process of the application. And so we had an instance of a family from Venezuela who they had been waiting about 3 years, I believe, in the border, and you know, out of desperation, the father from the family unit jumped over the fence, and we encountered him once he was released from the hospital in San Diego, and helped the family reunite in LA. But those are some of the cases that, as Esmeralda mentioned, we're following up in relation to this family separation piece, and wanted to elevate here on the presentation. I will just end with this piece on the buses themselves are politically charged in relation to what the governor of Texas is trying to do in wanting to saturate the services and what's available to immigrants in general and various cities. And we want to in LA, we want to change the narrative that's out there in relation to how folks are welcome and how folks are provided a dignified and humane treatment as they are navigating their new reality in their final destination. We know too well, we're an immigrant-led organization. Many of us first-generation immigrants. We know too well, nobody wants to leave their home country. Nobody wants to leave their community. But we know that many of these families is either they stay in those countries or they're facing the death or mass punishment for their entire families. And so it's a huge sacrifice that folks are doing. Many of them walking through various countries for many months, which is we've seen some of that in the Haitian population that has come in to our care. And so just part of our full welcome process is that we want to welcome individuals with a humanity, empathy, and dignity, so that once they are here, they are protected and they're ready to thrive in our community and provide a full integration process. And that's what we try to do here at Chirla and also with our partner organizations, including the city and county of LA. So I'll leave us there with our presentation, and I'm sharing on the screen since welcome any questions.
Hey, hi, this is Ari. I have a question for you. What about sorry, I have family members who work for Border Patrol, and they tell me that most of the people coming over have a phone number, have a destination that they're going to. Is there a way of how can we as nonprofit organizations help individuals know about services that may be available to them, whether it's legal services or health services, and how they can benefit from those?
Thank you, Hattie, for raising that question. At Chirla right now, we do a Pro Se clinic, which is every Thursday morning. Folks can call our 1-800 number. I'll make sure to drop it on the chat, and they'll be guided to a scheduling system. And so they'll be scheduled in if they are new arrivals in LA. If they're in the LA proper region, they'll be put into the scheduling system, and they'll be able to get an assessment by our case workers on site in our office in LA. And also we'll be able to meet with our legal team so that they can also do a legal assessment. Once those two items are completed, then our case worker will do a wraparound service for them in relation to based on it's a needs-based assessment, right? And so if they need sheltering, connecting with the LASA shelter system, and for us to try to find a bed. We have encountered new arrivals who just arrived on their own and are sleeping in MacArthur Park and other places, and actually homeless shelter provider and folks that are out doing in the field have contacted us and saying, hey, we encountered this group of folks. They said that they just came into the country and are sleeping here on this park. Can you all support them? And so we've been connecting with some of the local service providers that also encounter these individuals, and we put them in through our system so that we can do a full case wraparound case management for them. And part of also what we connect them to is a couple of the clinics that have been supporting us. Clinica Romero, we had St. John's, a couple of clinics that we've been following up to connect folks so that they can also see what they qualify for So new migrant arrivals have different levels of access based on the immigration status they have. For instance, depending of which country of origin you come in from, you might have different access points. So, for instance, Venezuelan folks are able to access getting work permits, and so our legal team helps them access that system to be able to get work permits and be able to be out there and part of the workforce. Then we partner with the city of LA to see if we can place them in any of those apprenticeships or programs that they can be able to access jobs and support, the need of workers in some of those industries. And so depending of the country of origin, it also is going to depend what kind of access points they have to local services, but our team will do a full assessment to them. So my biggest response here is that you can give individuals that phone number that Esmeralda just dropped on the line, and then once they are connected with our team, we have staff that are answering that phone line every day, and so they'll be able to connect to a live person. For us at Chirla, we know how hard it is for our community to be able to reach and talk to a person, and so we don't systematize in our phone line. We have people live 24/7 being able to answer that line.
I'll have a follow-up for you. How can our organizations sign up to be part of the network support network? For example, our LGBT services, we don't have housing and we have a little bit of food, but at least we have a community space where people can find some mental health support.
Thank you for that, Ani. I would love to connect you all with our emergency response management team, and that way there could be some follow-ups with them and do just connect with you all to see what are some of the services and opportunities that we can partner up. And so I'll make sure you all have my email and connect you with Cecily, who's running that department. So we have a full humanitarian team, and part of the department is also building and connecting with our local organizations to see how we can partner and be part of this network. This new arrival population is not going anywhere. That's going to continue we're going to continue to see folks coming into our region, and our main goal is how do we better provide an integration process. And so however we can identify any services or things that you have available that we can share and partner with. The other piece too is that we have been utilizing St. Anthony's. They've been very kind to us to lend that space for us to run the welcoming operation, which normally is between 5 to 7 hours at most of what we've seen. And so if any of you have a large space that we could have as another option, that's also something that we're definitely in need of, especially because now the location of the church has been leaked to the media, and we're continuing to see the church being targeted because folks are watching on the media that and thinking that people are sleeping on the church and all these things that are not real. And so originally we had St. Anthony's as an undisclosed location, and right away and so we're really also looking for another place as buses are arriving that we will take folks to that facility, ideally for it to be near Union Station, because Union Station seems to be the place where these buses are going, and that allows for all of us to be able to gather and wrap around these services in a short time frame. So far we've known that the buses are en route, but in other instances we will not have enough time to prepare, and so having another alternative location would be really helpful for us. But happy to connect with the humanitarian team offline and continue this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. We have a question from Teresa Nuno, and then one from Juana. Teresa.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Gloria and your team, such a great presentation. Thank you, Ari, for bringing us this. I'm building on Ari's question. I was interested in hearing just, I know we're running out of time possibly, but to the extent you can, given the diversity of the population that is coming through our borders, and you don't hear a lot about that diversity in the media. So it was really insightful for you to share with us the range of countries and what you and others perhaps do to, just provide support in ways above and beyond at the border. I'm wondering, what is the diversity of the collective or the network that you partner with? Because I didn't see that. Like said, there's people from Haiti, from China, from so many other countries. And so that's one, because I imagine, resources are really needed. And it'd be interesting to hear how other, population oriented services providers can help.
Thank you, Teresa. And the Welcomes Collective is like the rapid responders, right? And so we have been very thoughtful to have it's a very small group of entities that represents the different components needed for the rapid response operation. But we all have our own networks of organizations that we partner individually, that we branch out to be able to fulfill any needs as needed in relation to the response. Back in I want to say last November last year, we had heard that there would be coming December, there will be an uptick of individuals trying to jump the border wall, and there's this huge anxiety across the country around folks coming in. And so we huddled with many local immigrant rights organizations, LA County, and discuss, okay, well, how will we want to be prepared to be able to respond if an emergency does happen, that we need to really roll up our sleeves and get together. And that's where we decided to create a rapid response team. It's now become the LA Welcomes Collective, but we have always just been an ad hoc group of key immigrant rights organizations that are the rapid responders. And then based on our assessment of that rapid response, then we'll branch out to our other organizations. So for instance, CHIRLA is part of the Immigrants RLA Coalition, where we have over 90 organizations that are serving all ranges of the population, from the Filipino community, Korean, Chinese. We have folks that are working with the day labor centers, and so we tap into that network as needed in relation to this operation and on the new arrivals that are coming in outside of the buses. The same is for CARECEN. So CARECEN is the Central American entity. As you know, the second largest group of folks here in our region are from Central America, and so for us it's very important that we connect to that community, knowing that some of the Central American asylum seekers have less access points in relation to the type of status they come in with. And so the rapid response group is very, this group, for instance, Immigrant Defenders Project, they do a lot of work on the border and are very connected to the Haitian serving community organizations down in San Diego, down in Orange County, and in Tijuana. And so they bring in that perspective in relation to the population needs, from language access, from connecting to their communities, especially some of those communities that are been settled in San Diego. And so they bring in that perspective of their connections to the border agencies they're working with down in Tijuana and San Diego. And then you have the faith-based organizations that are, so we have the Catholic faith-based entities, and then we have the CLU network, which is the various denominations of faith leadership, so that we can also, once we identify what the response is needed, then we activate also our faith leaders and congregations to be able to support with food, with sheltering, with some of those more humanitarian needs for the population. So we work. So that's kind of how the collective is. It's intentionally small group of organizations that will branch out the response to our local organizations.
Thank you so much. I think the media in general is pretty ignorant about the scope and depth and of this, the way that all of this network works, and it'd be great to educate them a little bit. Thank you. Good luck and all the best.
I'll tell you, Teresa, it's an ongoing journey.
It certainly is. Gloria, we have, I think, one final question from Juana Mena, and then we will be wrapping up this segment. But thank you again for such a wonderful conversation and contribution to just keeping us current on what's happening in our community and how we can be a part of that and help. Juana, please, your question.
Gracias. Buenos
Thank
días.
you. Well, good morning. I think all this information is very important. I do know that you guys have people that organize and give that step forward towards helping folks who are coming from other places. I guess my comment will be the next. I would like to be a volunteer so that in case that you either need to read storybooks to children or just to have a pleasant time for them, because it's not easy for the children who are there. They need to have a space or a place where they feel comfortable and just kind of deal with the situation that's happening.
Muchas gracias por su comentario, Juana. I hope I can respond.
Thank you so much, Juana. Thank you so much for your comment. I hope I can respond in Spanish. So yes, we have put our information on the chat. You can definitely just send me an email and I can connect you with our team. And yes, I mean, well, the follow-up that we do with these families, like I mentioned in my presentation, a lot of the follow-up that we do with the families, especially because we have a huge group of kids, is that they're going to start needing to join school, and they're going to need the support just to guide the family as to how does the school system works here. So we are also trying to share with the community that would like to support so that these families have a better understanding as to the education and the basic needs for the children. So if you can contact us, then we can include you with a team that is working on the humanitarian team, so that we can figure out how you can join our efforts on supporting these families.
Thank you so much. And Rosa, you want to wrap us up?
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I hope my audio is okay. I'm calling I raised my hand because I want to just thank you so much for this presentation. Thank Ari for uplifting this, but the partners that are working as part of this collaborative, just appreciating just how difficult it is to navigate all of the needs that come right on a bus on any given morning, any given night. And so I know you know the wellness center here at the LA General Medical Center is a wonderful beacon of hope for the community. So I want to connect with you guys and see what we can do to offer either temporary space during the day, or if we can connect to any of our partners. We have a lot of church partners that are incredibly connected in terms of helping our immigrant community. So, just can appreciate that, sometimes, the needs are greater than the resources you have in front of you. So just want to make sure that you know that we are here, not just to learn about your efforts, but to be a partner with you guys in this group. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Rosa. And thank you again to Gloria and Ari for coordinating this segment, and just all the incredible work that's being done to help these very vulnerable people land safely and be treated humanely as they move on to their final homes and destinations. All right, with that, we will be wrapping up this segment, and we are delighted to move on. Delighted to move on to our next segment. We are going to have an update from Gilbert Gonzalez about the Century Housing Project and the community feedback that was received through that process. Thank you, Gilbert.
Okay, you're welcome. I didn't realize I was on very next, but good thing I'm ready. So let me go ahead and
Good. If you'd prefer to wait a minute, we could move one of the other presentations up.
No.
Are you ready to go? Okay.
No, I'm good. I am ready to go. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. As usual, if you've seen my presentations, I have a lot of slides. I'm going to run through them just so everybody gets a sense of what the update is, and any questions that we have, we can go back and answer and go back to the slides if that's helpful. But at first, I'm going to run through, and I will try to not run too quickly because I know this is being translated, as you mentioned. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, you all can see my screen. Let me know if that's not the case.
We can see you fine.
Okay, great. So what I'm giving an update on today, get rid of this here, is our community engagement process related specifically to design. So I'm here with Century Housing, and we are developing the Century Restorative Care Village Permanent Supportive Housing Project. This is a quick overview of all the different opportunities we've had to engage community and stakeholders, starting with HICP presentations. Our HICP subcommittee had a chance to present a number of months back. And then most recently, we've presented 2 in-person workshops and 1 virtual workshop with Chinatown stakeholders, and we'll talk all about that in more detail in just a minute. In terms of what we're doing with this feedback, so we're going to talk about this in more detail too, but we've taken this input, we've gone back and talked to our design team, and we've started to put together changes based on that feedback. And we had the first opportunity last Friday to present to Supervisor Solis's office, and we got some feedback from the supervisor just this past Wednesday. And we're going to be, you can see here that there's a follow-up presentation that will be taking place in early to mid-August in a 2 to 3 weeks or so, where we'll be following up on some of that additional feedback, and then hopefully at that point ready to present back to the HICP subcommittee, and eventually to an HICP meeting like this, which I would anticipate could happen in September. Just a really quick note, all of the material that I'm going to go over is located on our website. This is an image from our website. Move this out of the way. This is an image from our website. Our website is translated in English and in Spanish. So here's the Spanish version. And again, on the right-hand side, you can see a description of our workshops, and then links to a lot of the material that we're going to be looking at today. So if you wanted to, you can go to our website and find a lot of this material there as well. So in terms of the community design workshops, we held 2 workshops. One was on May 11th at the Lincoln Heights Senior Center, and one was on May 16th at Los Angeles General Medical Center, County General Medical Center. In terms of outreach leading up to the workshop, this is the area that we were able to canvass. Our community engagement consultant, Urban Samias, took the lead on that. We also briefed and coordinated with Supervisor District 1, Council Districts 14 and 1, in terms of briefing them on the project and getting their support with outreach and asking them to connect to their networks as well about these workshops. County General Medical Center, and then we also had some specific suggestions from the HICP subcommittee, all of which we were able to follow up on. These are just some images from the workshops. During the workshops, we had a project presentation where we covered the items you can see there on the screen. We had a design presentation, but we purposefully kept the presentations on the shorter end. These workshops were each 2 hours long, and the presentations were kept to 30 to 45 minutes so that we had plenty of time for the interactive portion of the workshops. The interactive portion was anywhere again from an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. We had 3 different stations set up, and each one of the stations we covered a particular topic. For instance, station 1, we talked specifically about the design, the community spaces, and the community art. Century was present, as well as the design team member. So in this case, GGA, our architect. We had an interpreter at each of these stations, and we had feedback boards and a note taker to make sure to capture all of the feedback. I'm going to quickly go through the different boards and feedback engagement boards that we had at Station 1, an overview of the design, and then specific questions that we were asking folks to give us input on. How would you describe the building? How would you describe what you actually most want to see if the building, wasn't, in alignment with what you want to see? Some specific questions about design. Let me move this again. What spaces should be prioritized? And then also about the community spaces that are a big part of this project and of the site, in particular on the ground floor, and then public art. What themes should be emphasized with the public art opportunities that we have on the project. And we also had another station focused on open space and connectivity. I'll go over these slides even more quickly. Again, we were asking what site elements were of most interest in seeing at the project, what community programming should be prioritized, and then asking some specific questions about, again, what should be focused on with open space. We wanted to gain some insights on where folks would be coming from, in terms of coming to the site, and we asked about off-site improvements, which we will have the opportunity to do, given one of the funding sources on this project, the HICP funding source. The third section we covered was on households, resident selection, and support services. We have a board that described the 2 buildings and the unit makeup and the affordability levels on that. We had a board asking residents where we should, when it does come time to begin to lease up the building, which is at least a couple of years out. Obviously, we need to get them built. But when it does come time to, provide the opportunity for folks to live there, where should we be reaching out to proactively? And so we got a number of, of suggestions there, and we'll be, following up on that when the time comes. We also focus on radical hospitality, which, as we've talked about before, is really an opportunity to greatly enhance and enrich the opportunities for the residents that will be living at this site, both in terms of bringing resources and engagement opportunities, enrichment opportunities into the project, but also connecting residents out into places in the community. And as part of that, we had a large map there, and we got a lot of good suggestions about resources to reach out to. terms of community input on design, so we our process was to collect the data. So the data was, that we were able to take away were the vote preferencing on the boards that I just mentioned, participant comments and notes. So, some of the conversation was verbal, of course, and with that we had a note taker there. And then in terms of the boards, there were often specific questions that were asked that community members could vote on, but there were also plenty of opportunities to write additional comments, and we had sticky notes, and they were able to use those to post on the boards. And so we captured all of that. We we put it all together. We used a spreadsheet. I'll give you a sense of that right now. We put together a summary and a presentation, which I mentioned we presented recently to Supervisor Solis's office, and then we've started incorporating changes into the project. Oops, I went backwards. This is just some examples of how each one of these boards we translated into both I guess how would you say, a numerical kind of format, which allowed us to get a sense of preferences and priorities, and then also into a narrative format, which allowed us, allowed us to, get some specific ideas about design updates. We've put together an engagement summary. This is available there again on the website. These are essentially all the different questions that we asked, and kind of the key top 2 or 3 responses to those, to those different questions that we asked about design, landscape, engagement, and public art. These are some more details of what those, outcomes were from our 2 engagement meetings. We can come back to these, but these are again the questions that we had asked about design. These are the questions.
Gilbert, I think in the previous slide, or the slide before that, you do have some of those preliminary findings. I wonder if you can step back a second and kind of read a little bit through those, because
sure.
I think that's an area that the community really cares about, and might be helpful just to kind of highlight, like, what you see in the slide.
Yes, definitely. And so I would imagine this is a slide that you were referring to. So in terms of design, a majority of respondents preferred efficient and modern design. These were, again, if you go back to the boards, these were the options that were most selected. There was a focus on organization, in particular around security, safety, and residential density. And then in terms of programming, there was a high preference and priority for employment opportunities and healthy food opportunities. We were really excited to see that a lot of the preferences and priorities were already incorporated into the project in different ways. And so, these are some examples. We do have a workforce development, and through a kitchen and cafe and retail. And so in that way, we were already addressing this 3rd item here with the project. In terms of landscape, majority of respondents preferred enhancements supporting public transportation, educational opportunities, farmers markets, transit mobility, green and gathering areas. And then again, a focus on green space, local ecology, and history. This is, so again, I'll just quickly go through this executive summary. So, what words best describe what the community would like to see? Efficient and modern were the top 2 characteristics. What design spaces would you like to prioritize? 52%, or the top two were organization and safety and residential density. I think this was definitely notable that organization and safety, especially around ideas like lighting or just safety in general, were really highly prioritized, and you can see kind of the gap between the top two focus areas here. What community spaces would you like to prioritize? Again, employment opportunities and healthy food. Landscape well, some of this I just mentioned right now, so I won't mention it. It's kind of listed over here. What groups do you suggest reaching out to when it does come time to lease up? These, I'm sure you'll recognize a number of these logos here, but these were a number of the organizations that we were kind of guided to reach out to, including just also just kind of, you know, grocery stores and schools and those types of opportunities to let people know about the opportunity to apply for housing at the new development. And then some of this is a repeat kind of the different questions that I just went over, so I won't spend time here, but if we want to come back, we can come back. Again, these are the design questions, the landscape questions. And this is where we kind of synthesized it thematically. So you can kind of see where the focus was emphasized. So open space and planting was a heavy focus, as well as security and lighting. I shouldn't say focus. This is more, I guess, a reflection of the engagement of where people engaged. Not necessarily what they're prioritizing, but where they were engaged in providing their feedback. So you can see those things there. In terms of next steps, so I mentioned our presentation to Supervisor Solis's office this past Friday. We'll be having a follow-up presentation with them in early to mid-August. We'll then present the updated design to the HICP subcommittee. We haven't scheduled that meeting yet, but we would anticipate mid to late August. And then after that, we'd have the opportunity to present a final presentation to the HICP to this meeting here on a Friday morning. Just two quick final points. I mentioned the feedback on the community art opportunities. These are the primary areas where those opportunities, you know, we'd be able to express them in the project. And one of the suggestions, either maybe perhaps it was suggested more than once, was to work with, you know, with an established, trusted group to help kind of lead us in that effort. And so we've reached out to Self-Help Graphics and begun discussing with them, you know, what that would look like. I'll also take the opportunity to mention that we do have another in-person community workshop that we'll be looking to schedule in September, October. And that one will focus on community benefits, and one of those will be the opportunity for public art. So we're hoping to have Self-Help Graphics with us for that meeting, and then to continue to be with us as we go through the process of determining who the artists will be and what the you know, what the themes will be. So wanted to mention that, and then wanted to mention also with Radical Hospitality. Many of you are familiar with Heart Forward LA and Carrie Morrison. I know she's listening in. So we got a lot of good feedback on opportunities to connect to resources. Carrie is eager to start reaching out to these places. I told her this would be a good opportunity to announce that and to let folks know that she may be reaching out to you if you have specifically provided some of this input. But if not, she'll be reaching out to some of these opportunities directly to begin getting them involved, and so that when we do go into operations 2 to 3 years from now, we have those relationships with them, and we can activate those and make those resources available to the project. Okay, I will leave it there and stop sharing for a second.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. Any additional questions? I do see a note here in the chat. Vivian's wanting to make sure that she is notified of the upcoming community meetings. How can she join your mailing list?
Well, for the upcoming community meetings, I mean, we'll take the same approach that we did for these previous two community meetings. There were some specific individuals that we were either kind of pointed to outreach to, or that we had, for instance, the HICP subcommittee. So if there's any organizations or individuals in particular that that you want to make sure they're involved in this, they could either and I see Vivian's note here, they could either provide their info here and now, and we can take that down and save it, and when the time comes for that outreach, kind of go back to that. We do have files for that. Or the other thing is, we do have our HICP subcommittee, and that's also an opportunity if you want to, that's still open for folks to join, and if you want to join that, you can also take part there.
Sounds great. Thank you, Gilbert. And then we do have another question with, question from Ari. I drive by the building location daily. I notice it is looking very shabby with weeds and ugly fencing. Any way we can beautify that?
Yeah, the fencing. I'd have to look into the fencing. That wasn't Century that put the fencing up. There may be an opportunity to enhance that. I don't know. I guess I'd be open to hearing opportunities or hearing suggestions on that. There is often a weeds and keeping that kind of situation tighter and more clean, and we can do that definitely. So we'll follow up on that. That is something that we do have to do at other projects as well, because we'll own a site or have control of a site, but then in the meantime stuff is happening. In terms of the fencing, I'm not sure, but if there's a suggestion, we can hear that. But otherwise, I'm just not sure. I'd have to talk to the county and see if we'd even have access to that at this point.
All right. Well, at least it's something for you to explore a little further and maybe report back later. Thank you so much, Gilbert. Appreciate everyone's patience with us as we are a little bit late in time, but we're very excited about our next update and presentation. We have invited our friends from the Department of Regional Planning to come back and join us and share some updates about what is happening with the inclusionary housing ordinance update. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we will invite Linda and Pat to share an update with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. Actually, Pat, did you want to provide your background on the map first, or did you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first, since you already have your presentation up?
Got it. All right. Well, hello and good morning. I am Linda Hikichi with the Department of Regional Planning, Housing Policy Section. I'm here to provide an update on the inclusionary housing ordinance. Next slide, please. Can I control it, or are you going to control it for me, Heather?
I'm going to control it for you, Linda.
All right, great. Thank you. So I'll just say next slide then. All right. So I will be presenting the following topics this morning: inclusionary housing ordinance, IHO, the current status, IHO feasibility study update, and IHO update. Next slide, please. So what is inclusionary housing? I'm going to give you a quick update, and then I'll give you the update on the feasibility study. So the inclusionary housing ordinance is a requirement for new residential projects to include a certain percentage of affordable housing. It is one tool in the county's toolbox to address the county's shortage of affordable housing. It was adopted on November 10th, 2020, and it became effective December 10th, 2020. The goal is to create mixed income housing while ensuring the housing is still financially feasible for developers to build. Next slide, please. So as you can see in the map, the IHO created 6 sub-markets as shown in the map. So basically you got divvied up into 6 markets. and it's dependent upon the project size. For example, if you have 15 units or less, it's considered small. For sale versus rental units, affordability level, set aside percentages varies from 5% to 20%, and comparability. And what that is related to the same number of bedrooms, similar exterior, interior appearance, overall quality of the construction, access to building amenities, and the units distributed throughout the project. So that is not located in one location. Next slide, please. So under the inclusionary housing ordinance, a housing development is required to provide affordable units if it has at least 5 units and is one of the following: a rental housing development in one of the sub-market areas in coastal South LA or San Gabriel Valley or Santa Clarita, or if it's a for sale development in one of the markets in Antelope Valley, excluding condos, coastal South LA, East LA Gateway, San Gabriel Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, or South LA, excluding condos. Next slide, please. So with rental housing developments, to ensure the financial feasibility of projects, the requirements include, there are 3 set aside options, again, ranging from 5% to 20%, depending on the unit count and the affordability level and the project size. And these are options to include the ability to mix incomes to meet the set aside requirements. So you're not just it gives you 3 options. So you can pick one of the 3 options. So you're not just subject to just one type of the affordability level. And then the lower set aside options for smaller development project, less than 15 units. Next slide, please. And for the for sale, again, you have options as well to ensure the financial feasibility for sale project. Requirements include set aside ranging from 5 to 20% of the unit count, depending on the project size and the submarket area. Again, the ability to mix incomes to meet the set aside requirements. And again, the lower set aside options for smaller projects if it's less than 15 units. All right, next slide, thank you. And so the ordinance required a reevaluation of the submarkets every 5 years at a minimum, or more frequently as determined by the director. A feasibility study was just completed in June 2023, literally like a few weeks ago. The study is available on the website, and I will show you how you can access the report. Next slide, please. So actually, this is under the current, so I want to give you, these are the results from the study. So let me just explain to you. So under the current, the inclusionary is not required for the rental if you're in the Antelope Valley, East LA, and South LA submarkets. However, with the recent feasibility study shows that it is still not feasible in the Antelope Valley or South LA, but it is feasible in the East LA. Next slide, please. Now for the condo for sale, under the current, the Antelope Valley and South LA were not subject to the inclusionary requirements, but the study shows that the Antelope Valley submarket now supports the inclusionary. Next slide, please. And for the single family, under the current ordinance, all the markets are subject to the inclusionary, but this, with the recent market trends, and the study shows that only the San Gabriel Valley and Santa Clarita can support the inclusionary requirements. Next slide, please. So how to access the website? The information on the inclusionary and the feasibility study update are available on the departmental website. DRP has a new website, same URL, but with a different look, planning.lacounty.gov. Next slide, please. So if you're to go, our work, it is circled in red. If you click on housing, and if you click on inclusionary housing, which is highlighted in yellow. Next slide, please. And on this inclusionary housing page under documents are all the report backs, the current ordinance, as well as the feasibility study, as well as a memo to the board. Next slide, please. So the inclusionary housing ordinance update is a program number 9 in the housing element, which was certified by the Housing and Community Development from the state, or by the state, May 27, 2022. The staff is in the process of drafting the update based on the findings of the feasibility study that was just released in June last month. Next slide, please. That concludes the update, and I am available for questions. If you want to hold on to the questions, or it's up to you, Heather, if you want.
Yeah,
Heather,
let's go ahead and dig in on questions with this because it's
Okay.
more separate and
Okay.
distinct.
Of course.
I'll go ahead and kick it off because I have a couple questions myself. So how have the submarkets been determined, and why is this not just a county-wide policy? Why is it only applicable in certain submarkets?
Oh, so this is a countywide ordinance, which means it is subject to all throughout unincorporated LA County. However, as you know, LA County is so diverse. So certain parts of the county have different market trends, different market can support the development. So because of that, it was subdivided into 6 different submarkets. If you go to the previous, I think there's a map. Not that one, not that one, not that one, not one more right there. So if you look at the map, it's divided up into geographically area. So the different colors show the different submarkets. And that way, so the real estate market or development market in Antelope Valley is going to be really, it's going to vary from in Rowland Heights or East LA or South LA. So because of that, it was subdivided up into 6 submarkets based on the study. They did it based on, whether the inclusionary makes sense for the developers, if it's a rental versus for a sale.
So yeah, I guess I live on the west side, so I'm always interested when the west side isn't mentioned in areas like this. So is the west side still subject to an inclusionary zoning ordinance?
So yes, so if you look in if you are subject to it, so if you're in the west side, so all of unincorporated, so we're not talking about the cities, right? Unincorporated areas are subject to the countywide ordinance of the inclusionary. Depending on the submarket and depending on whether it's a for sale project or a rental project, you may be subject to it, you may be not. And depending on the submarket and the location, the percentage vary. The affordability, it gives the developers options depending on how much of the certain affordability units that is subject to. So it gives developers options. So we're not saying you have to do this, but it gives you the option so that it makes sense. But we do have the feasibility study that just came out, and based on that, we are going to be updating the ordinance, and we are hoping to go with the update at the end of the year. But as we are drafting it as we speak. So we will come to you later on when we have more information for you.
So it's still in a process phase right now.
Yes,
Got
exactly.
it.
It just came out.
Well, we're getting the information hot off the presses then. That's kind of exciting.
Yes.
And the other thing is, as you guys are conducting the feasibility study, what are the considerations that lead a particular submarket to be feasible for adoption versus not feasible for adoption?
So this study was performed by a consulting firm, HRNA. So they're a group of economists. So they did the study, and these are the results from the study. So the actual study that was prepared by HRNA is on the website. So in terms of the actual report, it's only about 20 pages, but it's like a 100-page document. It has all the supporting data to support their conclusion. So you're welcome to read it. It's on the website. So for us, we're not the ones who did the study. We actually hired a consultant to do it for us. And these are the results. And I know what they did was they picked so many number of units and they ran the data. They had a model, they had prototypes, single family townhomes, rental, things like apartments in terms of number of bedrooms. So they use all that data to compare the different prototypes and came up with the results and say, in this submarket area is feasible, if not, is. So if you look at it here, so for example, for this, just for example, for the rental, the current ordinance for the rental in Antelope Valley, there is no inclusionary, because the study that was done many years ago said, you know what, it cannot support, you should not require inclusionary because it's not feasible. So, but based on the market rate, so let's just say we do not make them do or make them subject to the set aside. If they were to build a rental market rate, it could be feasible if you see it feasible under the Antelope Valley. However, if you were to have them be subject to the inclusionary and have them provide a set aside, meaning they might have to build for the developer, it's not financially feasible if you make them set aside so many units. So it's not feasible. And that's because it could be the labor cost, construction cost, whatever the land cost, all that they took that into account, and they came out with a conclusion saying the rental market in Antelope Valley is still not feasible. Therefore, we should not have them do a set aside units in that area for rental. So that's how you read this table. So when you have a chance to read the study, that's how you really just go from the top to look at the current, look at the market, look at the inclusionary, and you're like, oh, okay, it's not feasible. And based on the findings, we would update our ordinance.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Linda. I really appreciate it. And I think next up we have Pat to continue our conversation and share with us the update to the metro area plan. Thank you for joining us, Pat.
Yeah, no problem, Heather. Is it okay if I share? I'm just going to share the website, actually. That's what I'm going to do. Okay.
Go for it.
Let me. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you guys see?
Yep, we can see it fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm glad that Linda went first because she already introduced the fact that we just changed our website look. And so if there's anything that looks strange or doesn't make sense, please contact us because we're still cleaning up our website. But this is the project website for the Metro Area Plan. And after my talk, I'll drop this link directly into the chat and people can just click on it. But what we're doing now is we're starting to head into the getting ready for the public hearing before the Regional Planning Commission this fall. So there's a lot of activities that we're going to update the main project website every few weeks or so with additional information to let people know what's happening, what we're working on, and just upcoming announcements. So the Metro Area Plan, I think most of you know by now, I've been here for several times. It covers unincorporated communities in East LA and in South LA. And we started this project in fall of 2021 and been doing outreach. We had two major phases of outreach in the fall of 2021, and then last summer with both virtual and in-person engagement. And so I think in February of this year, we actually sent out a bunch of letters to all the properties that we were proposing to rezone as a part of the Metro Area Plan. A lot of them were focused on the housing element program where we're doing rezoning to mixed use development to encourage more housing development. But there were also a lot of properties that we were proposing to rezone that were industrial, and we were proposing 2 new industrial zones, the Life Science Park and the what we call M-0.5, which is a lighter light manufacturing as a long name, artisan production and custom manufacturing, something like that. But the goal of those 2 new zones were to address concerns with environmental justice and try to encourage cleaner industrial uses that would also encourage job development. However, when we, mailed those, I think it was 2,200 letters out to property owners, there was a lot of concern that came from the property owners with regards to the industrial rezoning aspects. And we just realized that we needed to do more outreach, we needed to do more research, we needed to have more conversations. So we actually took that aspect of the Metro Area Plan project, and we're not doing the industrial rezoning portion of the project at this time. Now, it is still a part of the implementation of the area plan over the next 5 years. But in terms of the action that we are going to recommend the commission take this fall, we're not asking them to rezone this fall. We have to do more research. We have to talk to more people. But however, we do intend to take future action in the next 5 years, if that makes sense. So we just sent out, because we took the industrial rezoning off the shelf, we had to redo our environmental impact report very quickly. So we actually just released a new environmental impact report. and I'm showing you, this is the documents page. So on June 12th, we released the recirculated draft environmental impact report, and that's to cover the fact that we took the industrial rezoning off the shelf, and also to address letters that came in when we issued the first environmental impact report in December. So right now we're in the public review period, public comment period. So if you want, you can look at the document and comment and give us your comments. The comment period ends at the end of this month for that. And at the time we released the draft environmental impact report, we also had released the public hearing draft of the metro area plan. So that's up here. And you can comment on that all the way up to the time of the public hearing for the Regional Planning Commission, which right now is scheduled for September 13th. And if you want some quick updates, you can look at these fact sheets that we posted recently that kind of goes through the project in a nutshell in terms of what we think people are most interested in and would want to know. And the last thing I wanted to mention, and people may be the most interested in this, is so as a part of the Metro Area Plan project, we did come up with an implementation ordinance to add some of those concepts that we proposed in the plan. And that means like putting in, while we're cleaning up and simplifying a lot of the regulations, but we're also providing new opportunities to create accessory commercial units in residential neighborhoods that we talk to the community about, and also the idea of shared kitchens to support mobile food vendors to have space to do cooking. And then there's a number of other ideas. Those are the ones that have been like the most popular in terms of discussion. So they were in my head. And then under here for the zoning maps, where it says zoning maps public hearing draft, and it says released yesterday because we just posted it, you can actually click on a new app we developed where you can just look up your property. Well, I'm sorry, these are the maps. I'm sorry, this is the static maps to look at the rezoning. But oh, the interactive map application that's down here where it says new. And this is where I'll put this link directly in the chat also. I think this may be the most interesting to just individual property owners. You can look up your address and zoning. Well, you could just type in whatever address you want and then look up the zoning and if there's any proposed changes, or you're just curious in general what the zoning of your property is. So yeah, so that's a new app that was put together by our GIS section. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now because I shared a lot of information and I'm open to any questions.
So do we have any questions on the presentation, the update presentation on the metro area plan?
Yeah, this is Ari.
I'll unmute.
Questions. Oh, sorry.
Okay, we'll let Ari go and then Pam after that.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. You mentioned Title 22 and rezoning areas, I think, for mixed use.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of Title 22, but it did come up in our local planning commission meeting in Alhambra. And so part of what they were trying to do with that is give the authority to, in that case, the city, to do permit approvals without having to go to public hearings. Is this what something that the county's doing as well in terms of trying to eliminate basically some public hearings in order to make things go faster?
Yes. So the state has a lot of different laws that already requires local jurisdictions to kind of make housing permitting more straightforward and by right. So a lot of it does depend on the zoning. So by rezoning, and for mixed use, the county has made a concerted effort to just do it in the first look at the corridors for mixed use development, because mixed use, as you know, is retail on the bottom with housing on top. So it makes sense to put it in the commercial corridors. But yes, I think if there's mixed use development that meets the requirements of what the county has in the code, then they can get, as long as they meet all the requirements that we have put in the zoning code, then they could get what we call, I think, a ministerial approval. But it's the mixed use zone already exists in the county code. So in terms of this particular ordinance, that's not part of the ordinance change. The change comes from taking certain commercial properties, commercial corridors, and rezoning that to mixed use, if that makes sense.
Right,
So
but
that,
also there could be an existing retail building, business, or rather
Yes.
building,
Yes.
because it is on a commercial thoroughfare.
Yes.
Then all they have to do then is add housing to that.
Yes, if they wanted to, right? So we're not forcing anybody. I mean, if the property owners want to keep it as just a commercial building, then they can. Or they can now have an additional option to redevelop their property as the mixed use. But if you want to take a look, again, I think under the zoning consistency area, this actually has the maps for every community. So if I can go through the map real quick. So what you would be looking at is, as a part of the metro area plan effort, you're looking at the MXD, mixed use development, that hashtag, that's where we're doing the rezoning. So in East LA, here it's mostly along Whittier Boulevard, and I think this is Atlantic, yeah, Whittier and Atlantic.
Yeah, I know that Pam has a question, but I do have a follow-up, and that is about building heights. Are there any stipulations about building heights in terms of here you have a commercial corridor, right? Like you're doing on the East LA thing. If they currently have 1 story, can they go to 6 stories overnight?
Well, it wouldn't be, I think it would take longer than overnight to build something.
But they could be zoned.
If they're rezoned to mixed use, then at this point, there is no height limit for the mixed use zone. But there is a density requirement. So I think that the range for the mixed use zone is between 50 dwelling units per acre to 150 dwelling units per acre. So I think the rule of thumb is usually the rule of thumb is like 10 dwelling units per acre is like 1 story. So technically in the mixed use development zone, it could go quite high.
Right, so there's no limit to that.
There's no height limit right now, no.
But there's also no minimum other than 1.
I mean, if they can keep if they're going to redevelop the site into a mixed use, then the minimum would be like 50 dwelling units per acre. If they were going to redevelop, or they can do nothing and just keep it as is. There's no, just because we rezone a property, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. Rezoning doesn't automatically mean people will come in and redevelop the property. It really is, the property owner still has control over what's there. They can stay there for as long as they want with what they have. It's just that it gives them, if they want to redevelop, then they have additional options with the mixed use development zone. So it creates additional opportunities for mixed use development, but it doesn't mean you have to grab the opportunity, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
Pam, I think we'll ask your question next, and then Alex has his hand raised as well.
Hi, good morning, Pat.
Good morning.
So how is this how do they come to this determination and not having height restrictions? I do realize you're saying that it is an opportunity, whether or not you take it is up to the development, but like, for example, in some of the other areas, like on Cesar Chavez and other development areas, it's 40 feet right now. How do they come to determine that this wouldn't be a problem? I understand that there is that ambition for development, but it's I'll be blunt and say it seems a little irresponsible because right now there are only certain. It seems that it could potentially that there is potential for something to go extremely out of scale for the area. And considering that we're already dealing with population density and a whole myriad of issues in terms of parking and other major concerns, how did they come to this determination that that wouldn't be a problem? Is there any justification for that decision? That we
the mixed use development zone was created like in 2015. It existed since that time, adoption of the general plan. And at that time, it was a county-wide zone. And I think based on our outreach, we hadn't received much feedback with regards to the housing element rezoning and height restrictions. So we didn't at this time, we hadn't put any restrictions on because we haven't heard actually much feedback with concerns on the height issue. So, and I think the focus, I mean, that's why we're doing outreach, right? That's why we do outreach. So,
okay, yeah.
So we're trying
I'm in the industry and I am aware of 2015's ordinances.
Mhm.
It's to suggest that the height would not be it's a height constantly. We have a couple of residents that now have 3-story buildings in the residential areas in East LA that are now trying to, I'm familiar with one of our clients who's still trying to move forward with trying to understand why there's a 3-story building right next to her home on Gerhardt. And her and her wife have been fighting that one for a couple years now of trying to understand how they were allowed to do it. So height is definitely an issue in East LA, and this is only a couple of blocks from Whittier Boulevard. But
right, so
the
if I
issues
can,
of density are an issue. So height would imply further square footage or cubic feet. So of course it should be taken into consideration, but
well,
height would be an issue.
Right, I would encourage you to provide feedback and put that in writing, and we can put it before the commission. As I said, we are taking public comments right now, but I want to help everybody understand. I don't think people necessarily have made this connection, but the desire for affordability in housing, part of it is, and also our desire to conserve green space and open space and have that. We have limited space, so we have to start building up in order to address affordability and also in order to conserve some of our space for green space and open space. And I know we haven't haven't had that kind of conversation about balance, but I just want to put it out there for folks to really think about. The reason why, like, some cities have a lot of green space and open space is because they started building up. And so then they had more space to create parks and walking trails and all those things. And so at some point, we have to, make decisions and prioritize certain things. So that being said, we do want to hear what the public has to say. This has not been an issue as we move forward in the metro area plan process. People have brought up a lot of other things, as I mentioned, the industrial rezoning, but you can definitely write in and provide us with your comments.
I would urge you though, and I appreciate your position and I understand where you're coming from with that, but with East LA and considering that we have the map on as the example right now is a very unique and different situation. Where you're saying we need to consider going up is we're already dealing with population density that is, well throughout Los Angeles County, but especially in East LA, we're dealing with population density that we are already struggling with as is. So, and I I don't see any areas that could be transformed into public spaces and green spaces. And as it is, our 10% minimums for example, in commercial developments is minuscule in comparison to what green spaces would be necessary to come up with any permanent solutions for providing public green spaces to our communities. But in adding those square footages and adding those cubic feet to be able to accommodate more and more residential units and bringing more and more, we are already struggling, and we do have there's many efforts in trying to support it, but we still are a community, a very, very large and dense community of limited resources. So in your considerations, I hope that your department takes into consideration that with a further increase in the population density, that there aren't an abundance of avenues to come up with the other solutions in making for a more habitable and human scale environment in terms of those green and public spaces. So where we go up, as you said, we need to consider going up.
Right.
That's more population density because we can't go out.
Right.
We're going up now. So hence the further population density.
Right. And I think one of the things we looked at in the implementation ordinance is with regards to design, right? Like when new development comes in, we're through our ordinance, we're going to require them to provide more green space and landscaping, which we didn't necessarily do that before. We required it of new development, but for urban infill development, we did not put in those kinds of requirements. And that is something that we did put into our new ordinance. And I want to be clear that, we are kind of spreading the love around in terms of rezoning, right? So we're not trying to put it all in East LA, and we also are putting it in East Rancho, we're putting it in Florence Firestone, we're putting it in Walnut Park. We're putting it also in other area plans. I'm working with colleagues that are working on a West Side area plan. So there's some reason. So we're trying to spread it out because we're not trying to squeeze it all in the same place. And we are looking at places that we didn't used to look at before. So, but there is a need. The county has a need for housing. That's why there's the homeless issue that, this is our piece of the puzzle in the planning department to try to address that aspect. So I hear you, Alex. I understand.
That's true. That is true, and I am
Yeah.
sensitive to it. I just urge that there can't be one uniform swath across. For example, we have the Section 8 housing developments, and yes, there is. But there's also a broader conversation around affordable housing, and homelessness is the solutions to try to help people economically out of those areas. But in the interim, if we're not sensitive to the provisions and how they may or may not create new problems, and which in effect would become permanent problems.
Yes.
We want our economy to improve. And will we ever be able to improve if our communities are still fighting for those same scarce resources with a further impacted density? It's not the same as, say, Santa Monica, as bringing in more housing, say in Santa Monica versus in East LA. It's a very different conclusion. There's going to be a lot of different impacts to who's already there, and maybe even not improving the quality of life for both new coming population and the existing one.
No, I hear you. Believe me, Santa Monica is also having to address the same issue. They've never had to build like I've seen them being forced to build right now. So, but it's a dynamic thing, and I do see, and our department is only covering a small. Our department covers only a small aspect, right? We're just doing the rezoning, but there are other county departments. There's a new Department of Economic Opportunity that's looking at workforce. There's homeless initiative. I don't know I know that there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and we're trying to work dynamically together. So I don't want to say that I'm going to satisfy you with my answer, but I just wanted you to know that there are other county departments trying to address all the other pieces of the puzzle, and we're trying to talk to each other to make sure we're being effective.
Absolutely.
So,
I do
yeah.
appreciate you and your efforts, just that your
But I
solution.
hear you, and I
broad
appreciate
brush.
being reminded. Yes, I am
Yeah.
reminded, and I'll talk more with my colleagues about the height issue.
Yeah, and thank you so much for, for bringing forward the presentation, Pat. You can see also probably a lot of different questions and comments in the chat right now. We are kind of at time with our meeting, so I don't know that we'll really be able to get to everything today, but there are some questions about Florida area ratios, ensuring additional community input, and also just are there opportunities to have requirements for recreation space, roof gardens, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's just a lot of passion for this community and to ensure that it continues to be a place where residents who live here today can live here comfortably in the future as well. So we greatly appreciate you coming forward for making the presentation today.
Yeah, and I don't think, like you said, I have time to look and address all these things. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the website and the link, but for some of the questions, you would want to look at the ordinance and just do a word search to see if okay, I have a question about community gardens. Let me just do a word search and see if this is being addressed in the ordinance or the area plan. That's I think the fastest way to look that up. But we are accepting public comments right now. So you can also email us those questions and we'll try to answer them. But again, we're trying to start heading into the public hearing process. And so that's going to be mainly our focus. And then we will try to address individual questions. So you may or may not get an answer back quickly, but we are starting to take comments and then put that into our package for the Regional Planning Commission to consider.
Perfect. If you would be so kind, maybe you could put in the chat how to submit those questions, and then how if there's a mailing list to be informed of upcoming public hearing opportunities. Otherwise, we'll try to make sure to coordinate with you so we can email out to our HICP membership.
On our main website, you can sign up actually. So,
great.
Yeah, to receive the newsletter.
Oh, perfect. Then yes, please everyone, please sign up to get those updates from the Department of Regional Planning so that you can participate in those upcoming community feedback sessions where all the time will be devoted to this conversation, so we won't have to cut it short, unfortunately, like we are today. So thank you so much, Pat and Linda, for your presentations today. And thank you, everyone, as always, for a great conversation. I don't think we're going to have time for a juvenile justice presentation today, but Karina, if you're still with us, I understand you have a quick update from Metro, and we do have one question about a bus line restoration. So maybe you could just wrap that up as our final presentation of the day. Karina, are you there? Looks like maybe Karina is no longer with us. All right, then. Well, in that case, I think we have come to the conclusion of our meeting time together today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Just as a quick note, we are going to be taking summer vacation in the month of August, so we will not be having an HICP meeting in August. However, we will be reconvening in September, so we look forward to seeing you all on Friday, September 8th. That will be the second Friday in September in respect of the Labor Day weekend and the first Friday. And so please enjoy the rest of your summer, and we can't wait to see you back in August. Please, as always, visit the hicpla.org website to keep current with our meeting schedule and to submit questions and comments for presentations you'd like to see at this table in the future. And with that, I thank all of our presenters for their time. Thank you, Edgar, for your your strong efforts and commitment to keeping us the translation moving forward. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Friday and rest of their weekend.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.